Hello, this is my final for psychology. Um, so here we go. Our first question is, what is psychology? A lot of people think psychology is just helping people with, their problems, and it's a lot more than that. It's studying human behavior. It's studying how we react to our surroundings, how our brain works. It has a lot to do with our body and our brain, and it's a lot more than just helping others with their problems. The technical definition of psychology is the study of mental processes and behaviors. Charles Darwin was kind of the first to be a psychologist. He was the first to study human behavior, record it, and then compare it to animal behavior. He kind of discovered our brains are a lot more complex than other living things. So he was kind of the first to start psychology. Psychology was evolved from biology, which is the study of human life, human organisms, and philosophy, which is your thoughts or your personal beliefs on something. Like philosophy education, I know wanting to be a teacher, I had to write a 7-page essay on what my philosophy education is. So that's what psychology kind of evolves out of. Talk about the methods and techniques that psychologists use. Psychology is definitely a big thing about studying human behavior and seeing how the brain reacts. That's one of the biggest things. Do a lot of experiments, a lot of testing, especially with humans, like James Watson. I think his name was James. No, John. John Watson did an experiment called Little Albert, where he took a baby and pretty much scared this baby half to death and made this baby scared of rabbits or anything that was white and furry. So they do a lot of experiments using actual humans. One big thing that they use is that has to do with everything in psychology is nature versus nurture. Nature is genetics and nurture is the environment, obviously. So someone who believes in nature believes you're born this way, you couldn't control it, it's genetic, you had no control over it. Whereas someone who believes in nurture believes you're born with a clean slate, you're a clean piece of paper, and as you go through life, your paper is being written on, and that's what molds you, your environment, your surroundings, your experiences. That's what nurture is. Another thing they use is correlation, and that is the relationship between two variables. Um, this is used in psychology pretty much to explain why two things occur. It gives psychologists an explanation for things, for events, and it allows them to make predictions. So, why does this happen? Why do these two things happen together? Like, an example of correlation would be, I'm sorry. An example of correlation would be things like a basketball player who believes, oh, I wore my gray socks and we won, I'm going to continue to wear my gray socks. In his mind, he believes that the gray socks are the reason he won. So that's the correlation between the two events. So a big part of psychology, as we talked about, because our brains are so complex, as Charles Darwin discovered. So the brain and the body. First, we'll talk about the brain. Yay. Your noggin. So, major parts of the brain. Your frontal lobe is located in front of the central sulcus. It deals with reasoning, planning, parts of speech, movement, and problem solving. This is pretty much your investigator brain. It helps you investigate things, help you make sense of things, your reasoning, your planning, things like that. Then you have your parietal lobe, which is located behind the central sulcus. Oh, you can't even see. And this deals with perception of stimuli related to touch, pressure, temperature, and pain. So, pretty much like when your skin touches something, your brain, that part of your brain lights up and is thinking, do I like the way this feels, or do I not? Or when your hand is touching a hot stove, that part of your brain tells you this is hot, stop touching it. Then you have your occipital lobe, located in the back of the brain behind the parietal and temporal lobe, and this deals with many aspects of vision. So when you see something, this part of your brain lights up and kind of decides what it wants to do with this information, and it has helps you decide whether or not to make a movement. Finally, you have your temporal lobe, and this is below the later fissure. It deals with perception and recognition, and auditory stimuli and memory. So the auditory stimuli would be the hearing part of the brain, and the memory is the hippocampus, which is another part of your brain. So those are the 4 major parts of your brain. The body. Obviously, we're going to talk about your sensory organs. So, obviously everybody knows sensory organs: touch, feel, or touch, smell, hearing, seeing, and tasting. So, we'll talk about the eyes first. You have 2 important parts of your eyes: the cornea, which is the clear window of the eye that enables the eye to focus and transmit light into the eye, and your retina, which is, I think, the most important part of your eye, the lining of the inner layer of the eyeball that is connected by optic nerve to the brain. So when your eye sees something, your retina sends this image through your optic nerve to your brain for your brain to process. Then we have the ears, and obviously you have your outer ear, which is the sound catching device. It's how you hear music, TV, your mom calling you when you left the dishes in the sink instead of in the dishwasher. The middle ear, which transfers acoustic energy from compression waves and air fluid to membrane waves within the cochlea. And the cochlea is a hollow tube in your ear. So this is what changes the sound to the brain. And then finally you have your inner ear, which contains the delicate features that collect the vibration waves as code. So pretty much the inner ear is what, collects the sound, sends it to your brain, and your brain decides what you think of the sound. We have the nose, and mine's a little stuffy, obviously. But your nose has something called an olfactory nerve. This is consisting of sensory fibers that conduct to the brain the impulses from the mucous membrane of the nose. So pretty much when you smell something, your olfactory nerve sends it to your brain, and your brain, makes a perception of it. Is it bitter? Is it sweet? Does it smell good? Does it not smell good? Things like that. Then you have your tongue, and your tongue has a lot to do with your nose as well, or your taste has a lot to do with your nose. When you smell something and the olfactory nerve sends it to the brain, your brain decides, does it smell good enough to eat? And that's when your taste buds start to work. And also, when you stick something in your mouth, does it taste good? Does it not taste good? If it doesn't taste good, obviously you're gonna spit it out, you're gonna throw up, and if it does taste good, you're gonna want to continue eating it. Your nose is a big part of this because, like I said, when you get the smell, you decide whether or not you want to eat it. And being a cancer patient and survivor, I know that when I smell something, even if it's my favorite food in the whole world, if it does not smell good to me, I will not eat it, because your smell has such a big part to do with your taste buds and how you taste things. And so then you have your touch, which is your skin. You have the epidermis, which is, this part. It is the outermost layer of your skin. It's actually the biggest organ of your body, too. Any part of your body can touch and be touched. So when you touch something, it sends a signal. Your epidermis sends a signal to your brain. Do I like this touch? Do I like the way this feels? Is this a nice texture? Is it not a nice texture? So that's what touch is. Those are your sensory organs. Without your sensory organs, your brain would not be able to process anything, and then the brain would have no point in being there. I mean, if you couldn't see, if you couldn't hear, if you couldn't talk, if you couldn't smell, if your brain couldn't receive all these senses, your brain would have no point in being there. I mean, except for maybe to learn, but to learn you need to be able to see, to hear, to smell, to feel. And so your body and your brain are very big parts of psychology, because in order to use the brain, which is psychology, you need your sensory organs. So that's how those connect.